Welcome to this recording of Pat Rodegast, channeling the spirit of Emmanuel in Oahu, Hawaii, February 24th, 1995. Subscribe to this channel and we'll let you know when we upload new workshops or other materials from the Emmanuel archives. Now, enjoy this meeting with Emmanuel.
February 24th, 1995, Oahu, Hawaii.
I know my history, it seems, at least as it clings to me, as I relate to it and identify myself with it. But in this moment, what does the environment demand of me? And you have been taught to believe that that is a very sane, a very socially acceptable, a very necessary way to be. And I have come with great joy to tell you that no, it's not. That the greatest gift is not behavior. The greatest gift is not even conformity. The greatest gift is freedom. And what does that mean? It does not mean to rebel against who you thought you were or who you were taught you must be. For if one is rebelling, one still honors some consciousness or some voice as greater and more powerful than the self. No, you have come on a treasure hunt. And the treasure hunt is the truth of who you are. And it will be nothing like what your mind has told you it ought to be. It will be nothing at all resembling what your mind says it better not to be, or it must be. There is no stress, there is no demand, because there is no danger. There is only treasure to be found. There is only the wonder of the discovering angel, the remembering human being that says, I know who I am now. I know who I am. There are no words. There is no dictionary to in any manner do honor to description. And yet, within your hearts, from the very beginning of this life, from the moment of conception, and most certainly before and beyond that moment, you know who you are. You know the gift that you bring. You know the light of your being. Does it become shrouded in human experience? Of course it does. But is it ever lost? No, never. Not one iota of it. And so you spend your lives struggling, does it not seem so? Struggling to attain what mind says you must attain. Struggling to be comfortable in an uncomfortable world. Struggling to be successful, whatever that may hold in its meaning for you. And you believe that the outer striving will bring you relief, fulfillment, joy, comfort, and remembering. And though most certainly this be a journey worthy of taking, and though you did indeed come to become deeply involved in the world of illusion, that is not your goal. That is not your purpose. Far more simple and far more, it seems, elusive and much more demanding. We will speak much of the moment of now, which means simply that the moment ago is gone and will never return, and the moment beyond this one has not yet been created by who you are. And so, in truth, there is no place to stand, there is no place to be, except here. There is no air to breathe except the air that surrounds you now and fills your body as you breathe. You cannot breathe in preparation for the 3 breaths in advance. You cannot breathe to fill a memory. Breath is a wondrous teacher, a metronome, if you will, of human consciousness. For as you breathe in, you must be present. You are no place else. And as you exhale, it is essential in the exhalation that you release the breath and therefore the life and the experience that you have just drawn in. And if you would be willing just to do that, whenever there is time, whenever there is space between the thoughts, let yourself touch that awareness of the breath, not in some performance of ritual or not in some rigid practice, but in a very practical sense. The means by which to bring yourself to the moment of now is to utilize, as I have said, the metronome of your breathing. It is there, it must be there. If breath ceases for any length of time, then you are no longer present in your physical body and you have come home. And all of the struggle and all of the life that you have chosen to live has been done with. And at the last exhalation, before the soul leaves its body, that is a completion. There are no threads left dangling, no matter what those who remain in physical form may feel about that. No matter how heads are shaken and regret is expressed, oh, they didn't finish that, or they had just begun the other. That is how it seems when one is looking on at anything, does it not? But when one is the center of the experience, it is always quite a different thing. And so as you live your lives moment by moment, and that is the only way that they can be lived, is moment by moment. The more you allow your attention, the more you allow the truth of yourself to inhabit that moment, the more vibrant you become, the more alive in the truest sense of the word. And with that aliveness, there is a compelling requirement for freedom. Now, bear with me a moment. What do I mean by freedom? None of you seem to be in shackles, and yet you are. Wherever there is a demand that pulls you from the center of this experience, from the moment of now, that demand, that requirement, becomes, if you will, your master. If you are not free to float in the center of this moment, then something has captured you. There are great loyalties that you all walk with, and they seem so noble and ennobling. But you say, I remember those I love who are not here, or I am planning for something that must take place with perfection when I leave and requires my attention now, or whatever manner, whatever holiness you seem to ascribe to the avoidance, if you will, of your human life. Let it be perceived as that. And I say that not in judgment, I urge you not to receive it in that way. Whenever you find yourself in distraction, whenever you find yourself wandering, do not bring yourself back with cruelty or anger or judgment, but bring yourself back. The habit of non-presence is just that. It is a habit. Something that fear has been very, very careful to teach you. For you see, fear's very existence, its life depends upon your willingness to be distracted from the moment of now. Whenever you feel fear, do not believe, dear ones, that it is because of the experience of the moment. For if you would allow yourself to be fully present, there is absolutely nothing that will frighten you. It will simply be another breath. It will simply be you in the moment of now, which is the moment of eternity. And when you have become aligned with the essence of your being, you hold remembrance. And in the remembrance, you know who you are. And who you are is indestructible. Virtually indestructible. Both in physical manner, as well as, of course, in your angelic and divine nature. And so when you are frightened and fear says, come, come, we must leave this moment of experience. Let us detach. Let us distract. Let us run as fast as we can, in any manner that we can, to escape. Know that if you obey that voice, and you have all learned to do that with great faithfulness, you intensify the sense of terror, if you will, because if you are not present, as dear Barbara said, in the moment of now, who is? And I have an answer for that. Fear. If you are present and you are perfect love, whether you remember that or find yourself able or willing to believe that at the moment, if you are present, fear has no room to stand. If you are present, your remembering is also present, and forgetting can find no place to be. And the only thing that allows fear to enter into your lives at all is the abdication, the willing choice, if you will, of each one of you to obey fear's teaching, which says you are in danger now, run away. And the response must become, and indeed it will, that no, I am not in danger, and I'm going to stay. Consider it this way. You're all angels. Bear with me a moment. I know the mind has difficulty perhaps in apprehending that as truth. You are all angels. You choose to come into human form again and again and again. For what purpose? Is it to be terrified? Is it to run and hide? Is it to wring your hands in anguish or grit your teeth in rage? Is it to live through struggle and pain and strife only to fall into a heap of ashes at the end and disappear? Who would choose such a journey? And I know each one of you have asked yourselves that. What am I doing here? And if I be an angel, and if I had a choice, you say, doubting very much that you did, what is the purpose? Well, the purpose is, if you will, to receive the lens of distortion that is imperative to your believing any portion of the human journey, and then be willing, as time makes itself known, then be willing to begin to alter the lens. Be willing to bring love where love seems not to be, to bring light into the darkness, remembrance into forgetting, and joy, the joy of the human experience, the adventure of the human experience, to bring that delight to the angel self. For you did not come just to suffer. For angels, if you can remember, when you were not encumbered by physical form, angels do not take kindly or naturally to suffering. It is simply not a product that is available, if you will, in the world of oneness from whence you come. And so you bring the joy, and I find that extremely important to remind you. Your world is rife with suffering, or certainly the acclaim of suffering. And I say that not cynically at all. But it seems as though the attention of the world is brought to the pain and seems almost incapable of perceiving the joy. Has there ever been a headline in any of your newspapers that says there were people, thousands of them, millions of them, who awoke happy, who walked through a relatively peaceful and productive day, and went to sleep in joy? Well, you say no one would buy the paper. I don't believe that. I believe you all would buy it, wondering what trick or scam or some kind of nonsense somebody was printing. The truth of it is, there is much more joy than sorrow in your world. And there's much more joy than sorrow in each one of you. Your very nature is joy. Your very nature is light and perfect love. Don't let the demands of your human world, the instructions of your childhood, nor the habits in your maturity to blind you and deafen you to that truth. Now, you can't think yourself into joy, but you can choose it. And by that I mean you can elect to be present in the moment of now. Follow the next in-breath, not in a cursory way or a casual way, but in a dedicated way. Enter your bodies. That's where you live. Enter your bodies. Align yourself with the breathing mechanism that will bring you clearly, directly to the center of yourselves and your lives. In the breath. Now, you might ask, what will keep me there? A willingness, perhaps an excitement, perhaps a fulfillment of a dream, perhaps just a natural wondering, what's it going to be like to be in the moment of now? And when you touch it, and it can only be touched briefly, for the moment of now only exists now. And I know that may seem to be too simple even to be said, but time will reveal its profundity. Now only exists in the moment of now. You cannot think about it, cannot anticipate it, you can't remember it, you can't force it, you can't perform it. And I know for many of you that will be a great relief. All you can do is allow. All you can say is yes. So begin with the moment of now, with the in-breath, and I promise you, that can indeed, will expand with your permission to embrace every activity of your life. Not the activities you're thinking about for tomorrow, and not the ones you're remembering from yesterday, but the activities of now. Who has not yearned to be more fully present and more alive? There is no other way to do it. Thinking about wanting to be more present only keeps you distracted. Anticipating being present only denies the experience. And so there is a point within each human life, and every one of you in this room, regardless of what your age and what you think is your purpose here, every one of you in this room has been called to a point of surrender into the moment of now. You may not call it that. That would be my description. You will call it whatever it is you wish to name it. But each one of you has a deep and profound hunger to be free, to be true, to be the essence of who you really are, and to live your lives absolutely 112%. And it cannot be done any other way. For the thinking about it, as you know, is paltry substitute for the experiencing of it. And so, we in spirit welcome you most heartily in this moment of now. And I want to suggest, if I might, before I relinquish the floor, if you will, to those dear, dear beings who are here to speak with you, I would suggest that throughout this time you spend together, that you remind most kindly and gently others, and allow, indeed, beg for, remind it yourself, that when you seem to be dwelling in something that has already been, or if you find yourself riveting on something you hope will be, that there be some means, some gentle reminder, perhaps the ringing of a bell, something kind and gentle, for the habit is deep in all of you, this abdication of the moment of now, to be reminded to inhabit this moment with as much of your attention, as much of your being as you can possibly allow. Do not demand of yourselves perfection, for the mind has no idea what perfection is. And so the demand simply begins the spinning of the wheels again. But allow, and let that be an important word, an important concept, the allowing. It is not that you have to drive yourself into selfhood, for selfhood is inevitable, it is unescapable, it is real, but it can be overlaid, as you all painfully know, by the practices and the demands and the defenses of your history. And so, do not mistake what I say for some self-flagellation that says, I must. No. Allow. The natural buoyancy of your truth will come to the surface. If only you will deny fear that tells you you must submerge it in the name of your own well-being. Leave yourselves alone, and you will be nothing but light and joy, and healthy as well, perfect in every aspect. Leave myself alone, you say. What does that mean? It means exactly this. The mirrors through which you have been taught to look are shattered glass and show you only the fragmentation of a human personality, and do not allow the wholeness, the entirety of your being to be perceived. And the modes of behavior, the codes of ethics with which you were taught to walk, the costume of human self you were taught to wear, has sometimes nothing to do, or very little to do, with the truth of who you are, but only was donned by the small child to comfort those with whom they lived and to find a little bit of peace within themselves, a bit of acceptance, a bit of quiet, a bit of love, which is so desperately needed by every child and every adult as well. But that be not who you are. And see it not that way. There are moments, you all have moments of great clarity, and you really see who you are. And there is a celebration there. Oh, briefly, for the mind steps in. Of course, it must. That is its position in the journey of your life, until you fire it kindly and give it something less interfering to do. And so fear says, no, that's not who you really are. Who you really are is this, and don't forget it, because otherwise you are in great danger. And so this is a time to promise yourselves you are not in danger. You are absolutely safe. Absolutely safe. I promise you, you have the promise of Spirit that nothing will befall you if you allow yourselves to become who you really are. For who you really are is not raucous or angry or defended or attacking. Who you really are is love. That's all you really are, and that's more than enough. He said, I usually begin a weekend by giving homework. And so perhaps I should do that before we move forward into other aspects. The homework is this, very simply, and you may take notes if you like. Before you go to bed tonight, rest comfortably with yourself, whether it be in ones or twos, in light or darkness, let that be entirely your choice. And ask yourself this question. If I could be exactly who I want to be, not in intellect, and this is the challenging part of the homework, but if I could fill my heart with the joy of self, what would it be? And write it down. Be aware as you're doing the homework how mind will insist upon what it is you ought to feel, what it is you ought to want. Set that aside as best you can. And go deeper, go ever deeper. You could be what your heart wants. In every aspect. It doesn't have to be only in one portion of your life. Let it spread out to all portions of your life, if you will. No, there is no monitoring. No, there is no right answer or wrong answer. Know that it is just an opportunity, perhaps, to reach a bit more deeply, to open a bit more generously to the voice that is always with you, that has been speaking with you through eternity, and that will walk with you and sing to you at the end of this life, and it will bring you home. Not only will it bring you home, but it will dance with you through your entire human experience. And wouldn't it be wonderful to be aware of that? So in other words, what is beneath the layers of the human shoulds and shouldn'ts, ought and ought not to's, the misunderstandings of your historic experiences? And I will stay with that word, misunderstandings, if I might. All of it. Let that voice speak to you before you go to sleep tonight. Write it down. Child, about to go to sleep in a very comfortable and warm bed, having had a wonderful dinner, and about to receive a bedtime story from someone whom you love very much. And let yourself begin, if you will, to wonder, but not in a negative way, but in a most soft and gentle way. Allow yourself to begin to consider, again, in a soft and gentle way, for all things when the child is going to bed, are soft and gentle, what it really was like. What it really was. No, really was like. When, in a time before time, you all gathered together, and one of you, I believe it was you in the far side of the room,
began to weave, as angels do, a most remarkable image. We all know that no one has to speak to each other, not in verbal means. There is no distance between you, so one does not have to learn to shout or project or utilize anything that resembles vocabulary. When one of you envisions, you all perceive. When one of you holds a particular gem of excitement, for angels adore excitement, all others instantaneously, if they be in the same family, the same wavelength, you might say, of perception, all are immediately present, for time and space do not exist, and so it is instantaneous. And so you, there, who began this incredible journey in creation with this one tiny idea, you said, and I will certainly attempt to present it in words so that it can be enjoyed and understood by the mind. You said, hear ye, in a manner, I have found a wonderful idea. What is it you all said as you gathered around? What is it? Well, you said, remember when we were discussing this perhaps an eon ago, or a breath, or now, we were saying we loved so much our home, where we live, the beings with whom we live, the perfection of it all, that there were times when we felt we would burst with joy, that the light that is ourselves perhaps couldn't contain the joy, and we had to explode and create another eternity, or two or three. Yes, you all said, you remember that. Well, I have found a wondrous adventure. I have envisioned, and therefore it already exists, a place, tenderness, beauty, of enough of home so that we won't become lost or despondent, but that it has one quality, and I bet you cannot imagine what it is. And you all whispered among yourselves, you're supposed to do this one. And someone over on the other side of the room, I believe it was you, said, is it larger than a bread box? No, nothing like that, he said. No, it's something that is so subtle that even I am pleased and amazed that I have discovered. What is it? It is something called illusion. What does that mean, please? Illusion means something appears to be real, but really is not. Oh, how clever you all said. What are we going to do with that? Well, what we're going to do with it, said the mastermind of it all, or seemingly so, what we're going to do with it, I would offer, if you care to join me in this journey, is to create a place that seems almost like home, with one exception. Yes? The exception is this, that everything is separated. And someone else asked, I believe it's you, more to the center of the room, you said, what does separated mean? Well, it's a difficult concept, we continued, but it means that oneness isn't there. Oneness isn't there? You all laughed. You said, what a foolish thought. Oneness has to be there. There's nothing else. Oh, I know, you said. I know there's really nothing else. That's why We're going to pretend. We're going to pretend that there is such a place where oneness does not exist, or almost does not exist. Yes, said someone, getting rather bored with the tedious back and forth of explanation. And then what? Well, and then, don't you see, we'll all enter into it, and we will experience what it is like to be outside of the oneness. What would we want to do that for? So that we can remember how wondrous oneness is. So that we can worship oneness and ourselves in love and all things even more than we do now. That sounds like a worthy enterprise. I'm willing. Are you willing? Yes, I am. Are you? Oh, yes. And all were instantaneously in agreement. All right, she said. Now comes the most interesting part. Having already imaged it, it has already been created, as you all know. Now, how do we get there? First, we place this wonderful circle, for circle is in magic form, and it always comes back to itself. And it will bring great hope for those who find themselves really believing that things are separate. They need only look at the shape of the world, and there it will be, oneness. But within that oneness, we must allow for a great variety of form and shape, experience. Where should we begin? How about a thunderstorm? How about a wonderful bolt of lightning? How about molten lava? Yes, you all said excellent. And then when that has gone for a while, then it will create rain, and rain will come and put out the fire. And having done so, it will create a chemical reaction that will allow the beginning of life. Life that grows, life that knows itself. Life that knows itself. What does that mean, one of you said? Well, you'll see. It is in the separation, there is a knowing. First, there's a knowing you're separate. That is very painful. And then there is a knowing that you're not separate. And that is very wonderful. How will we manage that? Well, the first thing I thought, said someone else who had joined the party at that point, I think what we ought to do is enclose ourselves in envelopes so that we appear to be very separate, but with one exception, which is that there will be little holes in the envelopes so that light goes in and out, porous. Yes. And another thing, the envelopes won't be half as heavy as they look. They won't be nearly as dense as we would believe they are. They will be mostly spirit, a great deal of air, and the dusting of illusion. How is that? Wonderful. And someone said, who had a very scientific mind, what's going to keep the dust in place through the journey? Will, determination, and perhaps a little magic that each one of us, of course, carries with us everywhere, no matter where we go. All right, let's begin, you said. Now first, before we enter, let's make it a wonderful place. Let's call it the Garden of Eden. And in this garden, let us, each one of us, imagine, formulate, create a creature, two creatures. Why two? Well, because that's how it's going to be. Where there is a means by which then others can come. Why don't they just materialize? Someone said. No, don't you understand? If this is illusion, then that sort of materialization simply won't work. What we need to do is formulate a yearning for oneness so profound that there is a coming together of two varying forms, we will call it male and female, and in that yearning there will be a coming together and a joining. And in that moment of joining, in the moment of true joining, that is when whoever happens to want to join them, who is called, will jump into, let us say, the woman's body and will grow until it is viable. And then it will expel and it will begin its journey. Excellent, someone said. I didn't know that you were an engineer. Oh, yeah. And so each one of you, and it's each one of you in this room, began to design creatures. And just for a moment, take time for introspective remembering. What creatures are closest to your heart? What creatures make you laugh? Which one of you created a crocodile? Or giraffe? Or a duck-billed caterpillar? An ant. How clever you are. And then, of course, there had to be beauty, because the earth is supposed to be very much like home. And so there had to be foliage, there had to be flowers. There had to be trees upon which birds could light and insects could live. Animals could sleep beneath their shade. All of it, from the tiniest blade of grass to the most magnificent mountain, all came in a rush to all of you. And without a word, because words were not necessary at that point, you all created, just like that, this wonderful, wonderful planet. And of course you all rushed to be the first there. Me first, you know me, well, it was my idea. I know, someone said, let's all go together. With every room. Oh, yes. Because we are the ones, we are the avant-garde. And after all, it was our idea. So don't you think we should have first dibs? Yes, you all said. And then in a moment, there you were, standing, well, a bit where you are now, not in Hawaii particularly, but on land, near water, listening to the sea. One of you said, what's that? Well, that's the ocean. Oh, shit, I forgot, of course. We created that too. And so you all said, let's look around. Let's see how it manifested. And you began your journeys. One went north by northeast, one went south by southwest. And you all scattered, alone, for angels never feel alone, until you found yourselves out of touch with one another. And you suddenly stopped in your wandering, and you said, what happened to everyone? I'm not used to this. In the oneness, we are always touching one another. We are always within one another. There is no such thing as distance between. What has happened? Something has gone really wrong. No, you remember. No, it's not wrong. There was some ingredient, was there not? We all agreed upon as a trial, as a uniqueness. And it was the illusion of separation. Oh, now I remember it. Is this what I was talking about Well, if I'd known it would be so lonely, I don't think I would have said I would do it. But nevertheless, here I am. What is to be done? And each one of you at your own point of realization sat down. And you said, I want to create around me people. People. Oh, they may be walking in bodies that are porous, and they may believe that they and I are separate. But I will remember, I will know. I will know that they and I are one because they are created from the love that is in my heart. And I won't forget. In fact, I will gather them all around, and then I will teach them. I will say to them, look to see the miracle of a world predicated upon illusion, and now let us snap our fingers and remember and go home. And so you began to call down to planet Earth, each one of you did, the gathering of family. And it took perhaps several centuries to gather them all together to your liking, those whom you called that somehow managed to squeeze themselves into human form, and gathered in information and experience, forgetting and remembering, and birth and death, and falling in love and falling out of love, being hungry and being sleepy, and all of it, all predicated upon the illusion that they were separate, for that was indeed the original plan. And then you said, now I'm going to tell them, each one of you, agreeing, there will be a specific time, a specific place. And you would say, I will be here, and you will be there, and you will be there. For indeed you do gather to consult each other when your temporary bodies are sleeping. And so there was this moment when each one of you, in your remembrance, said to the entire populace that was within the reach of your communication, hear ye, hear ye. I have something very important to tell you. Yes, they all said, yes, what is it? What is it? What I have to tell you is so wondrous, I think you better sit down. All right, they said, and they all sat about. I want to tell you that you and I are one. Well, they rather shrugged their shoulders, looked at each other, glanced at their hands, which were clearly not yours. And they said, what exactly do you mean? I mean, you said, that we're all angels. That this is an experiment. Don't you remember? It's an experiment. We all called you down here to enjoy the experiment. Just to live where oneness seemed not to be. So that when we go home, we will know greater the wonder of oneness, and we will expand all it is into a vaster self. Do you remember? Well, one or two. They happen to be very young children, not at their head yet. But others looked at each other rather suspiciously, raised an eyebrow or two, and said, well, that's all very well for you to stand there saying those things, but I have to get back to the store. Wait, you said, no. Oh, dear, you have really forgotten. Forgotten, they say. No, you're the one who's forgotten. Time to bring in the crops. That I've remembered clearly. You have not. And it seemed as though the wonderful, wonderful gift of remembering not only was not welcome, it was rejected, resented. And you became not a beloved teacher, but either an arch enemy or a fool. Oh, you say, what am I going to do now? I'll have to call a meeting. And so that night, while you all slept, you all gathered, as again you do, and you said, what was your experience? Well, you said you didn't believe it. I brought them this wonderful, wonderful message. They looked rather askance, cleared their throats politely and left. I had exactly the same experience, you said. And it was awful, because I could see how pained they are, how lonely they are, how frightened they are. Because they believe that they are separate, that they're going to die. They believe all the terrible things that we were just playing with, just pretending. And they have taken it seriously. Now what are we going to do? One of you said, well, we could go home. And another said, and leave all these sweet beings here? Oh, they'll remember, you said. They'll remember. It may take a few eons, but they'll remember. Another said, no, we can't do that. Remember, we are all one. And remember how much we love them. And how much they loved us, that they were willing, initially, to plunge into this adventure. And the creatures, and the flowers, and the wonderful gentle rain, and the sea. We love it all so much, we really do. Yes, you all said, I know we do. But we created it out of love. There was no other ingredient. And we love them. Yes, we do. And they loved us, and they received our message. Yes, they did. What are we to do? Well, one of you said, since a proclamation simply doesn't seem to work, perhaps if we just talk to them one at a time. That will take forever. No, it won't. No, if we begin to talk, and we tell one, and they turn and tell another, and they in turn tell another, it will begin to pyramid out. And very quickly you will see, everyone will remember. All right, you said. How will it be done? Well, the quickest way to get someone's attention and have their heart open at the same time is to fall in love. Excellent idea.
Oh, God.
So let us love them, and let us remind them in some manner that they love us. And then they will fall in love with us, and their hearts will open. And in that tender moment when their heart is open, we will whisper to them, we are one. We are one. And they will take that experience and they will turn to another. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. The first person that heard we are one said, oh yes, oh good, now you will never leave me. No, you said. No, that's not quite what I meant. I meant now your heart is open, and you remember the oneness through our embrace. Now you have to go tell other people. I have to what? They said. What kind of a person do you think I am? And so it, again, became much more confusing than useful. Do you remember that? It wasn't so long ago. And then one of you said, well, we could write. We could write our story. Who is going to read it? Well, we'll have to have someone be the focal point. Who will volunteer to be the focal point of our story? All right, one of you said. I'll do it. Excellent. Well, we must make the beginning of your life very, very different. And so we will have you born to a virgin. Really? You said? Yes. And then we will embellish you, we will surround you, we will place you the appropriate time where the teachings, the noble teachings of the time, will stir in your heart the memory, and then you will move to manhood in a simple, simple way so that you will be believed. And then you will find your voice and you will preach, and that will take perhaps 3 or 4 years, and then you can come home. Well, all right, you said. That sounds workable. We will do it. And so it took place. And along the way, of course, there were many surprises, for is that not how illusion is? But there came a moment when there was the preaching, the inner you remembered, and since you are all one, you are all there, and you were all preaching, of course. Do you remember that? And then suddenly you realize, my preaching is not enough. I have to do miracles. I have to continue to do them. For one miracle is dismissed in a very short while. It's imagination. And so there needs to be a series of miracles that will convince these dear people that they are not separate, that they are part of the oneness. And so you began to do miracles, and you said to everyone, you can do this too, you know. Oh, no, they said. Oh, yes, you can, you said. That's why I'm telling you. Because I'm bringing you the message of oneness. And that doesn't mean oneness somewhere else, it means oneness here. Well, I don't know, they said. A few tried it, and they were moderately successful. And it frightened them a little, and they rather backed off. But you had followers. There are people who loved you. And of course, within the world of duality, there are people who love you. There are people who hate you. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the unexpected conclusion. Though as it drew closer, it seemed most appropriate. You remember you didn't mind at all, though the physical discomfort was intense for a while. And you said, all right, I'll let them nail me to the cross, but that's not enough. No, it's not, we all said. No, it's not, for we were all in communication. We said, then they'll bury you, and then, then you will rise and you will walk around and you will say, you see, excellent, you said. And it all came about just that way, didn't it? Several saw, many spread the word, but more people disbelieved than believed. And remember how we all gathered together and we shook our head and we gathered. Our illusions seem to have gotten so intense that it's very difficult to expose it as illusion. People seem to become so instantly committed to it. What are we to do? And here is where we come to the present moment. You all agreed that it was time that those who chose to be human not be screened so that there is good or bad. No, there is only good. But that they be instructed. That before they enter, at the moment of their birth, a commitment to the body. Before that, you know, there is no commitment. You are in and out, and you are checking the plumbing, and you are organizing the physical body. But at the moment of commitment, that there be something different. That there be an area within the angel human that is not so rigidly committed to illusion, that it is a doorway that can open in and out to home, to illusion, to home, to illusion, that there is a pulsing that would be allowed so that you would not ever fall so deeply into forgetting as has been done before. And each one of you, when you were born this time, you had instructors. Don't you remember that? If you allow yourself, you will. An angel on either side, and many surrounding you to bid you good journey. And we said, now, this will be the key for your remembrance. The key, yes. An experience, a word, a touch. What will it be? You say, well, that's entirely up to you. You have just formulated your personality. You have just instigated all of the fail-safe devices that will bring you from here to there without fail. What would you want? And each one of you has devised, and you still hold it within you, the magic word or experience that will help you to remember. Some of you, very adventurous, said, oh, don't remind me until I'm at death's door. We say, why would you want to do that? Just because that's my choice. All right, we say. But we will remind you. Oh, absolutely. It is essential that each one of us remember, because it's time. it's time to begin to dissolve our experiment. It's time to bring everybody home. For there are many, many other adventures awaiting us. And this one, though it has been magnificent, has become painful. And so we are reversing the process. Yes. And that's exactly what you have done. Exactly what you have done. And each one of you holds this magic place within you that responds to your own uniquely organized moment of remembering. For some, it comes at birth. Some of you stumble over it when you are 3 or 4. Oh, to forget again. But nevertheless, it is always there. I want to assure you of that. And you each walk with 2 angels, one on each side, who discuss you with great compassion at all times. And say, well, what do you think? Do you think this is the time to remind him? Oh, yes, if you think that he or she is tuned to receive it now, well, let's listen and see what's going on in his life. And many times we say, no, the attention would be very difficult to get at this moment. But perhaps when you're asleep. So when you are sleeping, perhaps some of you are not aware of this, we lift you out of your body. You're always remaining attached, of course. And we bring you home. And we discuss with you what it is that's troubling you, how it is you can bring remembering in here and light in there. And don't you remember, you are so glad to be reminded again, because we must admit it's dense in the world of illusion. That's why you've all come to lighten it. It's time to lighten it before it becomes so dense that there's not enough air to breathe. There's not enough space to accommodate. And so here you are. And it is so exciting. You remember the last time we gathered while your body slept? It was a wondrous party. We all met, not any particular place, for there's no place, there is only isness. So, well, let us say we met in the isness. And we all said to you, how are you doing? How are you? And you all said, well, we're fine now. But yesterday was very difficult. Or the day before. Or, I keep forgetting. And one of you said, I'm homesick. I'm really homesick. And I don't think I want to do this anymore, you said. It's no problem. We will arrange for you to leave your body. Oh, good, you said. And as we moved through the weaving of, one might say, conversation and the touching of the points of remembering, you all returned home to your bodies. And you awoke the next morning and you said, I had a wonderful night's sleep. I feel very rested. I think I'll get up, do a little exercise, have a great big breakfast, and smile all day. And as you meet a smile from someone else, there's a recognition, is there not? I know you. Say, I know you. I haven't seen your body before. I know you. And you know something that I know. And then, of course, propriety says, well, I can't say anything. I mean, what would anyone say if I went up to them on the street and never met them before, and I looked in their eyes and I said, you remember, don't you? Why, they might pull me away and lock me up. And so loneliness is still present, but not nearly so much. Is that not true? The veils are getting thinner and thinner, as they must. And so you come to do such a magnificent piece of transformational work. And it is also simple. It is also simple. For you have these points of remembering on you. And I would suggest, before you go to sleep tonight, that you consult with yourself and you ask yourself, all right, what's my point of remembering? Perhaps it's a bird song. Perhaps it's of the wagging tail of a puppy. Perhaps it's a wonderful breath of air. Perhaps it's the hand of my beloved. Whatever it is, I'll let that remind me of oneness. I will let that remind me. And so, dear ones, you have woven a wondrous, wondrous pattern. And it is getting lighter, lighter, and lighter. And you all meet each other from time to time and life to life. And you say with great delight, you know, I really like you. I've only met you 5 minutes ago, but I really like you. Or perhaps in some circumstances you say, it was love at first sight. I never thought that would happen. Or there was a camaraderie, or there was an empathy, or there is simply a knowing that there was someone in the same room with you who believes what you believe, and that they know somewhere in the depths of their being that there is no such thing as separation. That home is here only disguised by the wondrous, intricate work that you have done. Now, there is a P.S. to this. All of the dear creatures that you have created, all the wonderful flowers, all of the sounds and the sights and the smells and the textures, you say, I don't want to leave those. You see, I put a great deal of love into my garden. Or I worship the sky and the sun. Leave them? Of course not. For did they not come from the same substance as you? Don't you remember, back in that beginning, when one of you had this wondrous idea, and you all said yes, don't you remember how it all began? There you were in the oneness. Home, of course. Because it seemed as though there was no other place to be. And then the moment of creation, and then the wonderful adventure, and then the forgetting that became much too dense until you were born. And in the moment of this birth, this one, that you are experiencing now, a light came into the world. And there are many more, many more. Each child that's born now is much lighter. Have you noticed? They are coming with more brilliance, more capacity to remember. And they are being born more and more to those who remember as well. Oh, it won't be long, perhaps a generation or two. And you will all remove your masks. And you will all remove your bodies. And you will stand brilliant beings of light upon planet Earth. And you will say, didn't we do a magnificent job? Why, we even fooled ourselves. And then, in a flash of light, a wondrous explosion of perfect love, everything will come home. But home will be a little different. It will be vaster. It will be perhaps a little softer. Perhaps a little more filled with self-gratitude. You never know what you are creating when you say yes in your name. Thank you for your kind attention. Sleep well, for we will be lifting you out of your bodies tonight.
I hope you enjoyed this meeting with Emmanuel. Subscribe to our channel and you'll be the first to know when we upload any new materials from the Emmanuel archives.